Are we going to see more downside, or does the SPY have a chance to get one more push? That's what we're going to talk about today. And the reason that we're talking a little bit about that is just because if you're a part of Patreon, we wanted you to be aware that even though we have reversal signals here, even though the reversal signals have popped up for something like NVIDIA, we still need to pay attention to structure when it does pop up in a very important area. This right here is DIA, aka the Dow Jones. You will notice this has curled over on a daily chart. This is down in negative territory for the 2 hour, but we haven't gotten a good retest of that breakdown area yet, and we have a 68% chance to land back in our zone by close tomorrow. So we're just going to talk about this briefly right away here, posting this right here, showing the 15-minute divergence that we were talking about, looking to see if we can head to the upside. And you'll notice that once we did create that 15-minute divergence, we have not revisited that level again. This MACD can cross over, and that would mean more downside. Watch out for a double bottom. And we do have daily expected moves for the DIA over on Patreon. Those have come in some serious handy lately. As we tagged a daily expected move multiple times this week, actually. We've kind of hit those daily expected moves, and we've even touched the weekly expected moves, so get those over on Patreon. But this right here can reverse up an hourly chart. Now, when we look at the hourly chart, it is very deep into negative territory, but we haven't really gotten a good retest of the breakdown area, this little zone down in here where we made the head and shoulders, the neckline was here, and we broke down, but we have not retested that, and this would be a good opportunity to do so. And then we're going to get into the SPY and talk about how the market can actually go to a new all-time high with this type of signal, and maybe the Dow actually taps out while the SPY is able to go make a new high. That's something we're going to get into, but right now you are seeing some little 15-minute reversal signals that says the DIA, aka the Dow Jones, has a good chance to bounce, so why wouldn't everything else? And that's what we're going to get into. All right, let's start it off with the SPY. Starting off with the SPY, when we get into 2 hour, you're going to notice that we were not able to lose that weekly expected move, okay? So this right here is where the options market gets taken off guard, and you really can see crazy things here. So if the daily would have crossed, that would be a bad sign for the SPY, even though everything else has. The daily has crossed down, so that is a bad sign. But as you were able to wick up kind of out of that downward unexpected area, it's a good sign that you're going to hold in there maybe by Friday close. So looking at a 30-minute, the first thing we want to do is get some daily expected moves. These have been very important. You're noticing one is down here at the low, the top side one being 583.90 to the upside, and we do have 574.58 to the downside. So you're going to notice that these daily expected moves for tomorrow, they are at some key freaking levels. We actually had a pretty big range today, right? But we didn't see the most, I guess, inspiring, the most big moves that you could ever see. So what do you want to pay attention to this going into Friday? Well, we still have that 68% chance that we're going to land above this area right here. So if we do flash down early on in the day, look if we are making some kind of divergence with this point on the 30-minute. That's going to be key. Now, another thing to keep in mind is the daily has crossed here. All right, the daily has crossed here, so we can be open to this being some kind of grab of liquidity to actually head lower, even though we're trying to do some kind of little cup and handle in here to go to the upside. We'll see if that's actually going to happen. I think the way you're going to know if this thing can go, see something maybe a little bit crazy tomorrow, maybe even extend this into next week a little bit, is going to be if this 2 hour can cross up. You're noticing the 2 hour is really close to the center line. Yes, we have the points of divergence up here, very flat there. So we were paying attention to this, and we used NVIDIA to help us out, but we don't have the best near price action divergence, right? We don't have the best. We just have a rejection one, and I really like them to show up, right? I really like them to be nice and flowy so I can really see them, have them be kind of obvious when people aren't paying attention. So if you're going to get bullish, that 2 hour crosses up, you got a good chance to take out this high, go make a new one, and I think that would possibly be the pathway to make a move towards 600. Maybe we fall a little short, we'll pay attention to that, but something to pay attention to as well is keep in mind the bearish standpoint of if that 30-minute can cross down, you will be breaking through this wedge and you might get some kind of retest, but that might be game over. So I still think we're approaching this top. I still think we might even have it right now, but I'm still open to, as this 2 hour is close to the center line, to see one more move higher, and that's just how the MACD works, right? We're close to positive territory. If we curl up into it, well, then we can test this high, maybe even go make a new one. We will be live tomorrow morning to watch stocks with you for this Friday. Qs, you're actually in a similar boat, right? You need this 2 hour to curl up to see positivity. And an interesting thing with the Qs are the daily expected moves. You do have 497.77 to the upside, and you got 486.87 to the downside. Great thing happened yesterday, which is we touched the weekly expected move. Exactly how low the options market is pricing in a move to the downside, and we tag it. Okay, so these are becoming more and more useful. We had a few weeks there where they were not really getting tagged, which is very fishy because we did have a little bit of implied volatility, but now we're actually seeing them tagged. So I do believe volatility is coming back, and we can see that with little reactions still remaining above the 200 there. Stick around for the end of this video when we go over volatility, very important. But if this 2 hour does cross up, then we might want to look out for that upside move. The only problem with that is if this 30-minute does not want to cross up just yet, right? We're hitting that pink line. That's as high up as we're supposed to go for all of 2024. And whenever we get above it, we see bad things. So I would watch out for 2 hour divergences up here or, anything along those lines, because that can add up to be some weakness in momentum. And when we've seen weakness in momentum above this pink line, it hasn't been very good for the market, okay? So right now we're just seeing if this does curl down, right? If we get bearish right away, we can see this curl down on the 30-minute, but watch out if that makes a move like this, tags that weekly expected move very early on, and then we actually see this start to turn around, because that means we might have bought ourselves more time for next week. That's pretty much all you need to really look for at the Qs. The main thing you got to keep in your head while you're looking at these on the shorter time frames is we have curled over on the daily MACD, so it would mean that downward prices would be very likely here until that MACD can really confirm that momentum is going back in the other direction. I think there could be a good opportunity for a 2 hour move like this, and then we end up failing that soon. So that's something that I'll be paying attention to, but you can obviously watch stocks with us in the morning to hear what is going on with that price action. Apple was about to do something crazy, which was we were looking for that daily to cross, and it actually was crossed for a little bit today, and we save ourselves just barely here. So something that can go on here for Apple is we could see another 2 hour point of divergence. That is always possible as you are close enough to the center line. That is what we really want to be watching here. Now, if you are a Patreon member, you have the weekly expected move, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, since we're going into Friday, join the Patreon, because it is great to have those weekly expected moves, because do you know where Apple's weekly expected move is? It's right here, and all those wicks, we could not close below it. So if we're going to use this as support, maybe we make one more move higher for a few days and then watch out towards the end of October. But something could be adding up here. Another note that we need to put out there, and maybe we'll just flip over to something else while we talk about it, right? Even something as bullish as Tesla, you really have to be careful with this. This has a ton of implied volatility going into tomorrow. It's again on a daily implied move, getting 80% here. So this was a massive, massive move. Congratulations to everyone. I know that we said there's divergence, but technicals can be thrown out the window. So, but still, you guys had the balls. Some of you guys had the balls to do it. So congratulations. Give yourself a thumbs up and pat on the back, and congratulations with that. And then you knew that we made a move outside of that weekly range, and it was a big range. So anywhere in here was a great taking of profit. You've reacted to a key level. We'll see if that can turn down. But we really wanted to discuss the fact that we have a moment where people could be going into bonds, right? We have a moment where we have possible wars that could be happening. There's craziness with the election. People might like that guaranteed money, and those yields have been going up, and we see that TLT has been dropping off, and that correlation with the market has really become negative. And when that happens, we can see a snap back, kind of like a snap back to reality, since Eminem's getting political now. Snap back to reality, which means we could see a repositioning. Okay, we could see these people say, hey, stocks are getting a little bit elevated here, a little bit high price, and so we might want to go into the bonds just for a little bit there to see if we can catch that, and then see stocks come down and then have an opportunity. So that's something to be aware of. No real big technicals here for Tesla. The main thing is just the 30-minute, right? If I'm looking for a trade setup, I'm waiting for this 30-minute to get close to that center line and then curl back up into positive territory for Tesla. Amazon, a lot of these are going to be similar. You see this flagging almost like it wants to make the next move higher, but if that's too much, if the selling becomes too much, well, this 30-minute can cross down and maybe we go make a divergence point. That would be the bearish take for right now on Amazon. The bullish take is going to be, again, if that 2 hour can cross up, we might have bought ourselves some time, but I just want you to see how this low is below a lot of key areas here for Amazon. So if you go up and you fail this move in any way and you turn back down, you're most likely likely going to make a new low here because we have really stated, hey, this could go into a negative trend with this type of look. So if we do see that 2-hour cross, just watch out at the gap fill. If it goes a little higher, watch out for weekly expected moves because we could create another point of divergence right here. And I'd be cautious over the weekend with how things are shaping up. This seems like a time where cautious managing trade, managing risk is going to be very, very important going forward. NVIDIA is one that I'm a little bit worried about because this 30-minute crossing up initially, it looks like a good thing, right? It's like, okay, we can take back the 5, we can go make this, maybe we make a divergence point and this is some kind of trap, right? But for now, you are very, very flat in here. You have not seen any kind of real buying come in. Maybe we're waiting for data to drop tomorrow. Tomorrow we do get durable goods. That's supposed to come out as positive. But if this 30-minute rotates down, I want to be ready to react. If it forms some kind of divergence, I want to be ready to react for that as well. But for the most part, we can see the 2-hour is dipping down. It is still positive. So we always have that opportunity for one more push. Just note here that we've used this signal multiple times now. This could be some kind of head and shoulders. Because we have used this signal multiple times now, we can say that, hey, the last 3 times we used it, it's worked out. This would be the 4th time it's popping up, which is it's outside of a monthly expected move, giving a reversal signal saying the daily needs to pull back here. So that's what we're paying attention to, but that has not happened yet, okay? It is very important to notice that the daily scale has not curled down yet. And we said in order for this to really be some kind of drop in the market, some kind of pullback at this point, if it's only people repositioning into bonds, then I would say it's more so leaning towards a pullback. Now, if things start to escalate, that's where it gets a little sketchy. If this starts to cross, people start to go into the bond market and then things really escalate overseas. Craziness happens because of the election, some kind of bad news. The housing market is already starting to collapse. If you go check out HGX, that gave us kind of a hint of yesterday's selling. But for the most part, if there's something added on to the fact that people are already going to reposition into bonds and then they have a reason to fly to bonds really quickly, you could see a huge amount of influx into the bond market. And that will be people pulling out of stocks and maybe going into bonds. So just be cautious. But right now, if it's just going to be people repositioning into bonds because they like the price of it right now, they like the yield that it's producing, hey, then that can just be a pullback. So that's something to note there as far as the macro side of things goes. And this is why I don't like to trade AMD too often these days, is because, well, it gave divergence points and this still could play out, right? We could still see a good move here, but you're noticing once that does cross, we immediately see that sell off kind of. And I know that the structure in here could actually look good, right? This could still play out, but right now you just have that 2-hour divergence. It's suggesting that this wants to see some kind of bounce. It is still far away from the center line on the MACD. The 30-minute is what I'm really watching here. Is this some kind of head and shoulders in some way? Some kind of cup and handle in some way? It kind of looks like it to me, and we're trying to go positive. So if that 30-minute crosses down, bad things can happen, okay? The daily scale is turned down. That thing's almost going negative, I think, at this point. So if this turns down, you got to treat it with caution. But if that 2-hour can remain turned up here, we break through, we create the good structure to head higher. I think the next point you really want to pay attention is going to be that 158 level. That will be taking back the 5, and maybe we can see this extend for a little bit more time. Meta was great to us, giving us the divergence to tell us that stocks might see some kind of bigger bounce here, and then it curls over, goes negative, and this says right here, this is when your MACD is telling you, hey, this red bar right here, yeah, we can make a divergence, but we don't have to, and it did not make a divergence here. You see a little 15-minute double bottom there, but we'll have to see if this has some positivity left in it, because this did cross over. It's saying, hey, there is no reason for upside and something bad can happen. Something bad is happening. We were leaning towards Meta pulling back a little bit more than this move here, right, or this move right here. So what we're paying attention to now is, can that 2-hour curl up into positive territory? And just so you know, this has a chance to go test a key level again, right? We've tested those levels a ton of times. If we're going to see some kind of sporadic move like this, and then we do this, hey, you got yourself a head and shoulders. You can maybe head higher here. But this will be kind of sketchy because you have made a super deep 2-hour MACD level here, and if that does pop up to that level, you can curl back down. Watch out for earnings and things like that, but you can curl back down, and that can continue the negative trend. You just see how much work it's going to take, right? This is a great move, but it's going to take more than that to see this go back into a bullish trend. So that's something very key to understand with Meta. So it just means be a little bit cautious, but we don't have the best reversal signals for Meta. So watch out in case it does, because that might be the real opportunity. AMC doing something great today, actually, curling back up on the 2-hour, looking a little bit flag in here and able to curl up on that 2-hour chart. So this says, hey, it could be go time, but we know going into Friday, if it doesn't happen, you know, on a Monday, most likely it's not going to happen on a Friday, because Fridays are where they really try to clamp down on it with options expiration. So I'd just be watching out for that. The daily scale has remained turned up at this point, and we will update you on Sunday. Make sure you're subscribed, because we're going to update you on Sunday, the key level you need to get through to see something crazy for AMC. GME, on the other hand, trying to bounce in some way, someone bringing up the 30-minute divergence, but the most important thing, guys, is just to notice that this is very coiled up at this point, right? We're getting very, very coiled up, and we can see an explosive move if one key thing happens, and that would be if the daily crosses up, and the second thing would be if they don't fight the stock, right? If the stock can break through all of that short selling, well, then this week you got to get through 2253. I know the week is about to end, so we are going to update that level for you on Sunday. Make sure you're subscribed. But when this daily does cross up, I'd really be paying attention, because this is getting really tight, and I think a big move is coming in the next couple of weeks for GameStop. Now, something that people were pointing out during the live stream was this, and I was looking at this a little bit this morning before the stream, just seeing the divergence point here. Now, this is 30-minute divergence. You did not necessarily make the best 2-hour divergence here, but you do have 30-minute, and that actually confirmed up, and we haven't lost that yet. So look for this. If the 30-minute is going to turn down here tomorrow, well, then that would mean not the moment. But if that can whip right back around, hey, that might be an okay signal. So pay attention to it, because GameStop, if it curls up on a daily at some point, that's when I really want to react to this one. This is a 15-minute signal. It's not my favorite to do 15-minute charts. I really like 30 minutes as the lowest ones I'll look for. But as TLT went outside of a monthly, outside of a weekly, well, then we started to pay attention, right? And it did make some divergence points down here. You kind of have multiple point at this level for the MACD and RSI at the same time, saying, hey, a big move can come. We kind of talked about this a little bit on Patreon. We talked about it live. So that's why it's good to stay aware of what we're talking about on this channel, okay? Because we're seeing a move up to where the 5-day moving average, and that's going to be a big deal. Can you take back the 5-day moving average? And the other thing about this was it actually had a 2-hour divergence at the same time, and you see that completing. So very significant as well on the RSI down there. We talk about the significance of these divergences in the course down in the description. 90% off. November is going to be your last chance to get that, guys. So grab that while it lasts. But can this turn up a daily chart? And this is why we were kind of leaning towards, hey, we could see a reaction into bonds that could pull down the market, because we started to see this signal, and that means these yields could start to drop a little bit. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. How you're going to know if this has a more extended move is still going to be if the daily can cross up here. Then we can see an extended move. I'd look for a reaction to something like 95.50 before we see a little pullback or something like that to create structure to break through. But that's what I'd be paying attention to for volatility, or for TLT at this moment. It does not look like a terrible setup. One thing on the shorter time frames, just so you are aware, if we're going to experience a pullback here, it would make sense, but it would be a very short-lived pullback in my opinion. Just because you've come up to a key level, right? We've come up to where you really want to start cupping up to. Now you can make a handle, and maybe we end up turning back up into positive territory. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is because there's a little 5-minute divergence. There's a little flatness there for the RSI on the on TLT. So a pullback here might be an okay thing. You might see that pull down for a second, retest the breakout area, right? Retest a little bit lower, grab some buyers, and then turn back up into positive territory. And that's why I'm kind of talking about the fact that over the weekend, this could be some kind of trap just to let options expire. So be very cautious as all of these MACDs across the board are starting to cross over. The only ones we're really waiting for are Apple and NVDA at this point. Quick, IWM is giving a little reversal signal in here, flatness on the MACD, and slightly up for that RSI with a bunch of points of divergence. So we're paying attention to it because we're outside of a weekly expected move, and this can get a reaction. And this actually makes sense when you think about TLT. Well, what do these small cap stocks like? They like when the 10-year yield is coming down. So the fact that it's been going up for some time makes sense why IWM is now seeing a bunch of weakness. And we even had the little divergence that we mentioned at the top that came outside of a weekly expected move. Fan-freaking-tastic. We love to see that kind of behavior. Now we're seeing it in the opposite direction a little bit. So this can turn up a 2-hour. It doesn't have to be some kind of major move or something like that. We still want to pay attention. This one's a little bit deeper into negative territory. So I'd be looking for that level of 223.08 as some kind of breakdown, right? If we're going to get a full retest here, something like 223.08 over the next few days would be something to test. Then you'd get this 2-hour to turn up, and then you turn down maybe from that area if we're going to experience some weakness. That would lead into maybe a bigger downward push than even this one right here. We have not necessarily seen that ABC pattern, something to base out. We'll look for those signals, but IWM, just wanted to show you the 30-minute divergence there, suggesting we can bounce. It obviously doesn't have to play out, but it does say the 2-hour has a higher probability of bouncing from here. And as we're outside of our zone, pretty close to it on Friday, it would make the most sense to land back in that zone. 68% chance of doing that tomorrow. Big thing with volatility was you didn't necessarily have divergence, but you did have a 30-minute that got closer to the center line, and that did confirm. So you got to watch out for the 2-hour. If the 2-hour is going to cross down here, we can react down, but watch if that buys back up. This can work itself out overnight, and then we can get data in the morning, right? This opens up at like 2 a.m. my time, Central Time. So if this is going to turn down, I want to look for a reversal signal here because we didn't necessarily make that divergence here. We can make it in the future a little bit. Now, the reason I'm looking for a 2-hour divergence is because if the SPY makes that same 2-hour divergence at the same time, and then we see volatility have it, and then we also look at the daily that can cross up because of a 2-hour divergence and the daily that is already curled down on the SPY, it would start to add a lot of validity to we are going to see some kind of downward move here. I think this will be considered a top, and we need to see if it is just going to be people repositioning or if it's going to be something more. Because if it's going to be something more than just repositioning, that's when we can actually see some kind of stock market crash, in my opinion. Now, I will show you the 30-minute just real quick. I'll show you that 30-minute because that has crossed over. So that is suggesting that this still could be a pullback, right? It's still in positive territory. It can turn right back around. We get data first thing in the morning. And this thing could work itself out a little bit more and see that reaction. So we'll pay attention to it. But for the most part, when I see this, I go, oh, volatility might actually subside here. And this is a lower high, so that could mean that 2 hours is going to cross and we're going to go make a divergence. And what we'll pay attention to if we get an extended upward move for, say, a few days, right? Nothing really bad happens over the weekend. Well, if we're going to get this for a few days, usually volatility is very good at giving you that divergence on the 30-minute that can turn up a 2-hour. We will pay attention to that for you on this channel. We'll mention it if we see anything pop up live. So I believe the main takeaway here is, are we going to see that kind of subside, make a divergence, break through this, or because we wicked above it once, are we going to see a big 2-hour reaction for a few days going into next week before the election? That will be something very, very key, because if we create some kind of weakness right before the election, you might get a little hint from momentum saying, hey, there is some weakness here, and you might be about to get some bad news. So that's what we're going to pay attention to, and I think that's the most important thing to keep in our mind. As we have seen that there is selling in this area, we can see if people get euphoric trying to get rid of that, and then it's some kind of trap. So we'll pay attention to that for you. We'll keep our eye on the dollar as that is pulling back. It's not even retesting the 5-day moving average yet, just so you are aware about the dollar, because we use that for rigged moves. But the dollar hasn't even retested its 5, so it could go retest the 5 and pull back even more tomorrow, causing some bullishness for a few days, and then we could see that difference maybe if the dollar starts to base out and the SPY continues to go higher, and see if we can catch any kind of rigged move. But that's a signal I would be really looking out for. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing. You guys are always fantastic about that. Grab that course that's down in the description if you're looking to learn how we do things around here very clearly. I try to be as descriptive as possible on YouTube, but if you want a very clear and cut strategy, if you want clear and cut information about how to treat these ranges, what they actually are, how to treat these indicators, what they actually are, and how to utilize them, that course is down there in the description. It is 90% off only through November, so grab it while it lasts. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a good night. Peace.